Malaysia. Bagai jendela yang luas terbuka, Alo dan TNB berusaha menerangi kehidupan dan memanfaatkan warga maya di seluruh negara untuk semua, untuk rakyat Malaysia.
Hello? Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay. My dear guests, I'm Azman, your host. Welcome to CJ Breakfast. First of all, thank you everyone for being here today, both here in Malakat Mall and those who attending virtually via live stream. We organize CJ Breakfast to connect and to inspire people. The last 2 years are tough time for most businesses. Many barely survive. So hopefully here we can connect with like-minded people, get inspired and build our business back. This is our third session. We had good response from previous sessions and we hope everyone will benefit from today's session as well. Our guest speaker today is an excellent example of the Malay saying, jika benih yang baik jatuh ke laut pun akan menjadi laut. Menjadi pulau, sorry. An engineer by training, his early career was with Petronas, where he rose to become the head of operations or production operations in Miri. He then joined an oil and gas company, and as their managing director, led it to become one of the major players in the industry. In 2004, he sold all his shares in the company and decided to do something crazy. He started an animation business at a time when no one is saying animation doesn't make money. So that animation, Upin and Ipin, has created history and today has become the most successful media icon ever in Malaysia. So betul lah, benih yang baik jatuh ke laut pun dah jadi pulau. So we all know Upin and Ipin is very popular among kids. But how strong is the Upin and Ipin image among adults? Okay. Take this for an example. In the last AFF championship in Singapore, when Malaysia lost to Indonesia, the Indonesian football fans decided to tease the Malaysian by singing, Upin Ipin kalah, Upin Upin kalah, kesian dah dia. So the brand is associated as a national brand already. So please give a warm welcome to Haji Burhanuddin, the man behind the famous Upin and Ipin and new IPs coming up as well from Copaque production. If you all pass through NKVE nowadays, you can't miss that big billboard which shows all the numbers. I think 10 million followers in YouTube, 4 million TikToks and something like that. It's truly a national phenomenon. Okay, so we wait for the Radzi.
Assalamualaikum. Very good morning. How are you? Okay, thank you for inviting me here to give a short talk about our success. Okay, okay, from oil and gas and to creative industry, this is something crazy. Not many people can do it. Okay. Okay, I'm not a creative people. I graduated as a petroleum engineer in 1982 from University Technology Malaysia, local bred. And then, because I have a Petronas scholarship, I joined Petronas as a petroleum engineer, initially in Kuala Lumpur with Petronas Carigali, and then I was transferred to Miri under Shell attachment. There on, I stayed with Shell, working partly with Shell, but mainly Petronas Carigali. Name only Petronas Carigali, but mostly I work with Shell people. One of my managers is Tasri Megat, who was a Maybank chairman. He was my former manager last time. Okay, I stayed in Miri for 9.5 years. So that's where I learned all trade. And toward the end of my career with Carigali, I was the one who led the takeover of operation to Petronas Carigali from Shell Sarawak. So I led that operation to take over, replaced with all Carigali people. Then in 1992, you see, every 10 years I decided to do other things. So in 1992, I decided to resign from Petronas because I thought I can do better than in Petronas. So I resigned. I worked with one Sarawak company as a technical director based in KL, but after 1 year, I resigned. I said, I cannot do that because my job mainly going for karaoke at night with Petronas people. So after 1 year, I resigned. I decided to do so many things, contracting, all that. Then there's a small company from Miri who was my former contractor doing maintenance. At that time, that company was family owned, and the turnover is only 8 million ringgit a year. And they have a contract which is about to expire. So he invited me to join as a managing director, and they offered me some shares. I stay on with that company, I grew the company. After about 5 years, the company turnover has become 163 million a year. And in 2000, we got all the maintenance contract for platforms in Malaysia under my company. We have a contract to maintain for Shell, Charigali, and also ESO. So basically, in year 2000, you will see all my people, Dayang people offshore. But toward 1994, toward 2004, at the end of our contract, all my partners, they wanted to go for listing. So that's the in thing. Once you have a big company, you want to go for listing. But I told them I'm not interested to run a listed company. So I decided to resign. And I told them, until somebody bought my share, I will stay at home. You pay me the full salary as the general manager, or as the MD for 2 years. I stay at home. They paid me full salary, and I played golf every day until I become a single handicapper. So in 2004, Naim Chandra bought my share, and they went on for listing. Obviously, when they bought it go for listing, they're talking about big money. At that time, they bought it for 40 million cash. So it's worthwhile. I work in oil and gas. That's for pension, 40 million. So when I got the money, my wife said, you are not going to be a pro golfer. So we had to do something, because at that time I was only about 50, 51, 52, like that. So she said she want me to do something else. So I told her, what you want to do? She said, let's do film. So in year 2000, 2002, the film industry is very bad at that time. Most of them Malay film, people don't want to see all that. So my wife said she can do a better film than all the directors. So I told her, are you sure? Yes, because from small I've been watching Hindustani film, and she's confident that she can do it. And I told her, you're not scared because I'll be mixing with the artists. She said, no problem, she will follow me wherever. At that time my children were already big, they are in the university, all that. So I went out, when I got the money, I went on and looked around, asked all the film industry. It's very difficult to go into film industry in Malaysia, because most of the directors, they thought they are Steven Spielberg, and they asked for big payment. But when you see the track record of the film, they just collected probably 1 million, 2 million. That's the problem. And then when you talk with the artists, all thinking they are Shah Rukh Khan, asking for a lot of money. So I told my wife it's difficult to do this. And at that time, in year 2000, the government believed that animation is the next growth economic area. So they pump in a lot of money into this creative business. I think in 2002 they allocated 200 million grant, and they parked it under MOSTI. So I decided, okay, I'll join it. We go into animation because it's easier to do, and also there's a lot of incentives given by the government. So my wife agreed. But I realized in 2000, there's no more. All those studios that were famous in 1990 are no longer there. Cartoon like Anak-Anak Sidik, all the famous cartoon in 1990, all the studios are no longer there. So I tracked who are the owner. I think Arwah Kam I met, and then Raja Azmi. And I found out what's the problem with your studio. And they told me they are depending on a few creative people to do the show. But the problem at that time, their market is only RTM. So all their production, they sold it to RTM. So their income fixed. But when they are famous, all these boys asking higher salary, bonus, all that, they can't afford to give. But after a while, all of them left the company and they can't do the production anymore. So I said, that's very, very dangerous for me. So it so happened in 2004, I was introduced with some boys who had just graduated in animation, and we decided, I told my wife, let's do it. So I said, okay, we form a company, and I gave the name of the company as Last Copaque. When I was young, I used to play cards. When I pulled the last card, we always said, Last Copaque. So that means a last chance. You're hoping that you can win it. But because we want to go international, so I decided to spell it in French. So when you go to Cannes, they always say, Le Copaque. But in French, of course, Le Copaque has no meaning. So we formed, and the first thing that I have done to them, to this group of, the initial is about 11 graduates. I told them, you go and do research on the pipeline. How to produce animation over and over at a certain quality. So after 8 months, they came out with that. And I'm confident that we can go on. Then I asked them, each module, you create training module for each process so that we can train new people, we enter each process. So what basically I'm doing, I'm not creating a studio, but I'm making a factory. So anybody who left my company, I don't care. I get new boys to replace it. That's why we stand until now. So we cannot be threatened by all my staff, because we can replace them at any time. But that's how I started it. I safeguard my interests, all that. So we were lucky. When they have completed the first sneak peek, we decided to do film. So they did the pipeline, the process, and at the end of their study, they came out with a small sneak peek for the film. It's called Gang Pengembaraan Sneak Peek. If you go to YouTube, you can search for it. And I'm quite satisfied with that. Then we went to Cannes in 2007 to attend Meet TV. And at that, in Cannes, it's easier to see the CEO of the TV station in Malaysia and also the minister rather than in Malaysia itself. So it so happened, I met TV9 CEO, Arwah Cik Bo, and I showed him that. He said, if you can do content for fasting month, he will take it. So that was in April. Ramadan in that year is in September. So I came back and asked my boys, okay, take out the 2 bold boys character in the original film script and do story about fasting. So they refused, but I insist. Because they said if they do that, their film project will be delayed. I said, no, take it out. So my wife, being the script writer, he have a team. So he asked his team, her team to do the script. But in initial script, she rejected because they were telling about this boy trying to bluff that they are fasting, stealing food, all that. So in the end, because she don't know how to type, I have to sit down with her. I'm the script writer with her for the first 6 episodes of Upin Ipin. The Upin Ipin name came from my wife. She said, use the word, the letter U and I. And then we put pin behind it. So it's very nice, Upin and Ipin. U and I. That's why if you see our mascot appearing in public, it's always Upin on the right Ipin on the left, because of the word you and I. Okay, we created the first season, 6 episodes of 5 minutes, Upin Ipin. So we presented the first episode to TV9. So happened the CEO they don't have a DVD player in his room. So he asked us to play at the common hall. But when we show it, the staff at the end there laughing without seeing the image. And then when I asked him, "You want to take it?" He said, "If my boys don't watch," and he still laugh. Of course, it's a good content. So we made it. 2 weeks before Hari Raya, the last episode is about Hari Raya. When I want to write the story, I asked my boys, "Where's the parent?" But the boy said, 2 weeks, we can't do the model. So, went back, my wife said, "Okay, we start in the morning going to the grave." That's why until now, Upin Ipin is an orphan. Yeah. So a lot of things are not by design, but because of circumstances. Once you release, it's really a big hit. Malaysians have not seen such animation. So we continue making the film. As a result of Upin Ipin famous, we had to rewrite this. My wife had to rewrite the script and delayed about 6 months of producing that. Then the following year, TV9 asked us to produce for Ramadan again. So we produced 12 episodes of 5 minutes Upin Ipin. We continue making the film. By the end of 2008, I have about 40 staff, and the film is ready for release. Because Upin Ipin is so popular, I didn't spend much on promotion. For Gala, and that gave me money. For promotion on TV, Media Prima was so excited, they pumped in a lot of money. So in the end, I spent only 80,000 ringgit. And the film went on to become the blockbuster of the year. I think they collected 6.2 million at the time. So that's how it happened. And then we are very famous, Upin Ipin. 2010, after the release of the film in 2009, so 2010, I managed to enter Indonesian market. When we discuss the MTech, they don't want to go to Indonesian market. They say it's the third world market. But I decided to enter because I know my program, for sure, it will be a hit there. But it's not easy to enter there. So we have a lot of negotiation then. When I presented my show, I told them this is my price. They said too expensive. They can't afford to pay. So instead, they offer me revenue share. So I don't know what is revenue share. I don't care what it is. As long as they agree with that, I take. So in revenue sharing, that means you share all the advertising income within your program. You will only see your money 6 months later after they close all the account. But after 6 months, they paid me. They say, "Ya Pak, kami rasa kayak dirampok." I mean, they said is the thought they have been wrong. Because it's not small money. But if they have bought it, probably they buy it. Probably the most is about 500 US per episode for 2 years license. But because of that, monthly, I got about 400, 500,000 ringgit. It's a big money. So it was successful. When we released Upin Ipin, it was a hit in Indonesia. One thing that I put condition to Indonesia, you cannot dub into Indonesian language. I want it in Bahasa Malaysia. So they agreed. You can only do subtitles. So initially they are very skeptical. They thought the children don't like it. But in the end, when they show it, they came back to me. Ya, anak-anak tu kata lucu, Pak. That means it's a lot humor. When they listen to Bahasa Malaysia, they thought it's very humorous. So it's very popular until now. So now you don't worry. You can take the Indonesian made because most of them are talking in Bahasa already. They're a bit worried because the younger children, they're talking Bahasa Malaysia already. So it's so famous. Now Ipin series on MNC TV, they are playing 5 hours a day. Every day, 7 days a week. So it's a lot of money. So we are talking about 2.8 million a month from them. Okay? This is my team. If you go to the highway, you will see it on the board. We dare to do this. So it's part of the motivation for my staff. Because some of my staff say, I will have to work hard to put my face on that next time. Okay? So, this company was established in 2005, and me and my wife, the founder, I brought my daughter, Nona Kuya. When we started, none of my children are interested. And she was studying in University Malaya in real estate. But she joined, I think, later, I think about 2008, 2009. Very much later, she joined. Now, she get hooked on that. She became the CEO now. She look after all the operation, especially on YouTube, everything. Okay, go on. I cannot tell you a lot more story because too short. So, okay. These are the strategies that I put up. I want to spearhead the animation industry and provide local graduates to showcase their efforts and then to be the leading animation studio in Asia. So we put we focus in putting Eastern values and global appeal on all our content. We create top quality product and spin-off business. And also we have our own pipelines and training program. So we don't depend on foreign expertise. Okay? So these are the main focus. We specialize on 3D animation, local talent, and we promote our cultures. This is our product. The main one is Ipin, and then we have Pada Zaman Dahulu, which is quite famous also. And then we did 6 episodes, Putri 2014, for a test case. Really a big hit. These are the spin-off from Ipin. Ipin Nikra, Helping Heroes in English. Dadu Dido is basically what is this, 1.5 minute silent movie. Basically, internally we want to test new directors. Okay. These 2 films, Ipin Chris Yaman Tunggal, you can still watch on Netflix. It's one of the 2 films finalists in Oscar in the animation festival, in the animation category. So we make history. We are the first film from Malaysia to go into the final selection in Oscar. Okay. So this side is our partners, MNC TV Indonesia, Astro Malaysia, Brunei, Singapore, and YouTube. We don't sell to them. We share revenue. But this side is our client, RTM, Disney, Netflix. They buy content. Okay. Our revenue now is almost 40 million a year, mainly from overseas. YouTube and Indonesia is our main income earner. Okay. Social media, we have Facebook, 13 million likes. We have Diamond Award. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. So these are big time and easy for us to market in terms of sponsorship, all things. We are award winning. Every year we must have award. So I think in my office about 6-7 cabinet already. Okay. We have managed to form, to create a lot of spin-off business. We have academy. This Monday we have our first convocation on diploma, teaching animation, and all the syllabus developed by our studio and some of the lecturers from the industry is our staff. Okay, we have merchandising, we have academy. Some more? Okay, this 16 years, we have achieved a leading animation studio in this region. We promote local culture globally. Upin Ipin become Malaysian can be proud of, developing human capital and 100% local talent. So all our staff are local. We don't have foreigner, and all of them are permanent staff. Okay. So we have successfully developed animation business, not animation studio. It's more than that. Okay. I think 1 or 2 slides more. So this is future project. We're going to build our theme park. Hopefully we launch this year. It's going to be in JB for the small one, but the big one, I don't know where I want to start yet. Okay? So in Johor also, we're going to develop Ipin kindergarten. So we'll develop the franchise business model, and our main market will be Indonesia later on. Okay? This is our headquarters. Hopefully we can start building it, inshallah. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Tuan Haji. We are short of time, but can allow 2 questions. Anybody ada soalan?
Hi, hello. I was wondering when will your book be published? Because I've been following you on Twitter, so I'm looking forward to that book.
My book?
Yes.
Okay, this Friday, the printer will bring the Bahasa Malaysia paperback edition. Hopefully all be really ready by mid-April. Then it will go to the store. But the first batch is I give it to my staff first. So it's the letters. I wrote the book about the story, everything. If you want to learn how I build the business, it's all there. It's not a rigid way of telling you how to do business, but it's just to share my experience, and a lot of remarks inside there written by prominent people like Govind Simbeo, our minister last time. He wrote inside that, and then Johan Jaafar, even this CEO Datuk Izam Omar also wrote something inside there. There are quite a lot of prominent people who wrote about how I do my business. Okay? So it will be available in the bookstore. I hope it can be released by mid-April. The hardcover and the paperback. They are both in Bahasa Malaysia and in English. Okay? More question?
Yeah. Assalamualaikum. Regards to your one slide that you shows the academy itself, do you have any arrangement or partnership with the local institutions with regards to the animation? Because when I saw that you say human development capital, development, development that kind of thing, is that a plan in the future, or you already have that in hand right now?
Yeah, the academy currently offer diploma level. It's wholly owned by Copaque. The syllabus developed by Copaque, and some of the lecturer, the industry, came from Copaque, and when they go for industry training, all of them will be trained in Copaque. So the first batch, 100% got a job. So what we are thinking, we have no, well, it is working with other university yet. We did talk, but there's no concrete that we signed. But I believe not very long, I'll make it a university. Okay? Dah, anything? Oh.
Assalamualaikum Tuan Haji. Your story is very inspiring. I have two questions. The first one is, when you said that you created training modules so that if people leave your company, then they are replaceable, right? You don't have to depend on them. I'm just curious, did you actually outsource the training module or you create it yourself?
We don't outsource. Anything in Copaque, everything in-house, including music, all that. I have music composer, everything. So when we wrote the training module, it was written by the staff itself.
Oh, okay. That's very good. A second question is, I'm just curious, because you said that when you marketed in Indonesia and you insisted on the audio to be in Bahasa, is there a reason why?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's the reason?
We are very patriotic.
Okay.
I told them, if your film come into Malaysia, we don't change the language. But why can't you receive mine in Bahasa Malaysia? So I insisted that, but luckily it exploded,
Yeah.
so nobody talk about it anymore.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Terima kasih Tuan Haji. Okay. If two things I can learn from Tuan Haji presentation is the beginning and the end. In the beginning, he developed a system. He go into something new. He don't just listen to what the experienced people had, but he used his knowledge and experience to develop a system, a business system. He's unlike me. I also went to filmmaking. He's from Dayang Enterprise, my company Dayang Digital. But I made the mistake of listening to experienced people, and the film didn't do well. So, in the end, because he had a good foundation, in the end, he's getting 40 million ringgit a year. Something no production house in the Malaysia can claim to have. Yeah. Certainly not mine lah. Okay, all right. So Tuan Haji talks about going to Indonesia and being successful there. Our next speaker is also someone from Malaysia that's now based in Indonesia, and he will be talking about his journey there as well. He was from PNB, and then he moved on to Maybank Investment. And then the Qatari take him to Qatar to lead their mergers and acquisition team in the Qatar National Bank. And when they set up a new bank in Indonesia, QNB Bank in Indonesia, he was sent there to help them set up. And in the year 2016, he became the acting CEO of the bank. But now he left and he's on his own entrepreneurship journey. He's in fintech and he's have this peer-to-peer lending app called danai.id. Okay, let's check our technical team. Just give me 1 minute. Assalamualaikum, Azhar. Can you hear us?
Waalaikumsalam, can.
Okay. Over to you now.
Okay, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning to everybody. Unfortunately, I couldn't listen to Tuan Haji's presentation. It was very inspiring. I saw it at the end, but I can't really hear anything he was saying. Anyways, perhaps thank you, Jasmine, for inviting me to this event. Maybe what I'll do this morning is briefly explain tentang the fintech industry in Indonesia and perhaps the significance, and perhaps after that, if anybody has got any questions or discussion, feel free to ask. I'll share some slides. Is that okay, Jasmine?
Okay. We can see you.
You can see already, right? Okay. As Jasmine initially explained or briefly described about me, I was actually an investment banker before, then turned a conventional banker by accident. Basically, I acquired a small bank in Indonesia for Qatar National Bank, and I was assigned here to turn the bank into a QNB franchise, and eventually I was thrust into the CEO position, and from there I start to discover commercial banking and the potential of Indonesian commercial banking or rather financing sectors in Indonesia. Perhaps the most the glaring points that I actually noticed about Indonesia is about the inclusivity of financial services. So about when I first arrived in Indonesia, 50% of the population still haven't got any banking account. So the banks here, despite having about 150 odd banks, big banks, main banks, they still have not been able to basically cover the whole of the countries. So, and we actually realized the only way to do that in Indonesia is basically to use technology, because back in 2011, when I first came to Indonesia, the mobile phone penetration is already well over 100%, about 110%. Internet penetration about 60 to 70%. It's the biggest BlackBerry market in the world. And everybody basically knows how to use the QR code, even back then in 2012, 2013. So that is something that is the insight of the industry. Then the industry has somewhat started to have an inflection point sometimes in 2016, 2017, whereby everything else started to change. Now everybody knows how to pay using the QR code. So basically the industry, the fintech industry, the roadmap is, or rather the map of the industry is about this. So there are many verticals around fintech. Then I just grouped them into three major ones: the transactional technology, credit management technology, and also the ancillary financial services technology that supports the entire framework. Now, the most heard of verticals in this fintech industry is basically the Iman, because they spend a lot of money to promote. I'm sure everybody now knows about Gojek, who just recently merged with Tokopedia to turn into GoTo. So now they have actually Gojek have got an e-money called GoPay. Grab has OVO. Dana is a standalone vertical. Link Aja is actually owned by the government. And Shopee is the latecomers into this, but of course have grown some into quite a significant force by splurging a lot of promotional money into the proposition. So that is the most heard of. Then you have remittance, and also you have payment gateways. Those are actually the areas where the transactional framework are being enabled through technology. So on the other side is actually the similar to a banking kind of industry, i.e. the credit industry, sub-industry within the financial technology. So mostly around credit scoring. Credit scoring now have somewhat transitioned into what was actually a traditional credit assessment into more database credit assessment. So there are a few artificial AI companies that is using non-traditional metrics to score people for their credits, like trusting social, using social media and stuff like that to start to to score people for their credit worthiness. Now, the main players within this industry is the one who actually lends the money, which is the fintech lending. In Indonesia, it is covered under the now is a licensed activities under the Otoritas Jasa Keuangan. So this is actually a challenge. The ones who are actually challenging the banks and the digital banks. So we are in this market. danai.id is one within this market. So it is a licensed lenders or peer-to-peer lenders. And also on the other side, what is now started to gain certain significance is the pay later subsegment. The pay later subsegment is not entirely played by peer-to-peer lenders. So like for example, Akulaku is actually a finance company, but they use technology, they use mobile phone proposition to actually introduce what you would see in cost memos or something like that. Now it's turned digital, so something like that. So basically you are actually paying installment for purchases. On the other part, the other ancillary financial services, you would, in Indonesia, you start seeing insurance technology starting to gain more prominence, wealth management, crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is a little bit slow. There are not many players in that space. Then you would have enablers. Enablers is something that is also new, whereby actually they are offering APIs connection to players that is actually connected to the banks for them to do financial services. Then you would have aggregators, where they are actually have a sort of comparison for interest payment and stuff like that. I would now go into more details on the the peer-to-peer lending, because this is actually the space where we play. And as I mentioned earlier, this space is actually a very interesting space because of the availability of credits to the very large chunk of the society is still not there. So actually, fintech lending is actually the one playing into this, filling into this vacuum. So basically, the industry started off in somewhere 2014, 2015. The government, basically, Indonesia has taken quite proactive steps in this. They have started to regulate this industry back in 2016. So prior to that, maybe before that, there are a few players started to offer peer-to-peer lending. Then in 2016, they introduced a regulation. Then you can start seeing the second wave, whereby it becomes regulated and more people coming in. Until today, I think there are around 103 players in the peer-to-peer lenders license in Indonesia. And you can start seeing the industry to become more and more, growing. And in somewhere in 2018, they actually introduced something very interesting in Indonesia. They introduced an association called Asosiasi Fintech Pendanaan Bersama Indonesia, whereby this is actually made up of all the P2P lending platform to become a self-regulating bodies to help the regulators to regulate the industry. So that actually becomes a third wave collaborative era, whereby the regulators is still working with industry to start to implement regulation that is actually protecting the public, while at the same time basically does not stop the innovation that people are doing for the industry. So it is quite collaborative kind of relationship between industry and the regulators. Slide different. Actually, this slide is just describing about the difference between Indonesia and the Chinese peer-to-peer lending. There are a lot of similarities. Maybe only a few different metrics. Number one, a large portion of the industry is still not served by the mainstream financial services. You can see the middle class population is about 200 million odd, and in China it's about 1 billion. And the penetration, you can see the internet penetration in Indonesia is far higher than in China. Credit cards, despite the huge population, is only about 6% in Indonesia. In China, it's 15%. And the last point is where actually they diverge. In China, they actually focus a lot more on individual or retail credits, consumption credits, whereas in Indonesia, they start to also have a balanced proposition between retail or consumer financing and also the business or SMEs financing. Then in terms of regulating, Indonesia starts earlier. At the very beginning of the industry, they already started to regulate, whereas in China, they came in a bit later. And in terms of regulatory approach, Indonesia actually adopted a better collaborative approach, whereby they actually talk with industry, whereas in China, it's more strong arm kind of regulation, if you notice lately. In terms of infrastructure, both countries, basically Indonesia and China, gave access to, this is something that actually we appreciated a lot by the industry, whereas the central bank, or rather the authorities, allows P2P lenders to also access credit databases of the central bank for us to assess potential credits assessment for the public. So this is kind of the differences that you have between Indonesia and China. And perhaps just to give a flavor of what actually has been happening in Indonesia, you can see basically this chart actually indicates the last 1 year monthly disbursement of credits. So it reaches about 4.5 billion ringgit in middle of last year and ended up with about 4 billion ringgit disbursement in December. The total year disbursement 150 billion ringgit kind of disbursement. Disbursement. Now, I think what is actually is interesting. You can see this is actually what the banking in the commercial banking industry is doing. The banking loan growth was about 258 trillion, right? About I think almost about 100 billion ringgit. Then P2P lenders is not far behind that. It's actually 156 trillion last year. So in this sense, basically Indonesia P2P lending industry is actually beginning to be more and more significant in the whole of banking financing fraternity in Indonesia. So it can be seen despite only being around for maybe less than 10 years, right? It's already playing a prominent role in Indonesia. And they are increasingly more and more cashless payment being used in Indonesia in the form of QR code and stuff like that. So basically, that's a little bit just a feel for what is actually in Indonesia. And I think I just will hand the discussion over to Yasman if there's any question or discussion. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you very much. So we have time for 1 or 2 questions to Encik Azhar. If I ask Azhar, if a Malaysian company, a Malaysian fintech company wants to start a business in Indonesia, how difficult will it be to break into the market?
I mean, breaking into the market is still huge. I think there's a lot of space for new players. In terms of regulation, for P2P lenders, foreigners are allowed to own up to 85% equity interest in Indonesia. So, like for example, if I just can touch a little bit on the kind of market you can see, there are about 103 fintech players in P2P lenders, and yet we are still growing tremendously. So, meaning there is still a lot of spaces where people can play. For insurance players, for example, Indonesia penetration rate is less than 5% for insurance. So there is a huge, opportunity for insurtechs, insurance technology, as well as wealth management, i.e. The mutual funds industry. Right, it's also very low penetration rate.
Assalamualaikum, Encik Azhar. Just tanya sikit.
Waalaikumsalam.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just go through quickly your website on your business model. So because I did a business in Indonesia before, so I saw that the Indonesian government, especially the last few years, they make it simpler, innovative, easy to deal with a lot of technology-based company. So just my question, the same business model that you are doing in Indonesia, can it be done in Malaysia? Bank negara regulation, all kind of restriction from the government agencies, because I saw, I just go very quickly in few minutes when you are talking. I think a bit difficult to do the same business model in Malaysia. I don't know whether I'm right or wrong, but I don't think maybe it cannot do in Malaysia. If can do, I want to be your partner in Malaysia. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Basically, the thing is why actually I choose to do this in Indonesia is basically for P2P lending, for the consumer financing especially. You need to have a huge under or unbanked population. Kalau Malaysia, Singapore, banking penetration is already more than 100%, so it's very, very hard. I do agree with you, it's very, very hard. However, there is actually a small segment in SME in Malaysia. I've been looking at Malaysia basically in the last few years. That might be applicable because SMEs everywhere have got a lot of problems getting financing from banks, right? Because lack of collateral, lack of maybe track record and stuff like that. Fintech gives you some kind of innovation that does not really rely on your collateral and also your past performance. For example, what the innovation that we did was actually doing an inventory financing. So in the past, bank used to give financing based on your inventory as a working capital. So then the inventory is kept as the collateral. But most of the time, when the loan went bad, you go to the place or to the company, then the inventory is berat. So that is the most difficult problem in banking. However, we do an innovation in Indonesia whereby we work with a virtual warehouse. A virtual warehouse whereby we connect directly with the warehouse through API, backend system. So we impose credit covenant over the inventory that they have in the warehouse. So when they breach their credit covenant, we can freeze the movement of the inventory. So in that sense, lenders becomes secure, right? To give even to SMEs. So if you can do this in Malaysia, I think there's still room for this type of solution to be offered. If you talk about the bigger personal loan kind of things, it's going to be hard because in Indonesia, for example, I still enjoy quite a good margin, around 11 to 12% per annum, whereas bank could maybe 4 to 5% because of the gap, the financing gap. In Malaysia, everybody can borrow from the bank. So if you borrow from the bank, then you can't fight. Everybody goes to Bank Rakyat in Malaysia, right, for personal loans. So you can't really fight them. So, but there are pockets where this can be used. So if you look at ASEAN in a bigger perspective, there are countries where actually this on a wholesale basis can be introduced, like Philippines, maybe Vietnam, perhaps Myanmar once they are out of their problem. So that's the kind of opportunity set that can be done in Malaysia and also in the whole of ASEAN.
Hi, I'm Elain. I'm actually our company, Ata Plus, we're a regulated equity crowdfunding platform, but I'm also the president of the P2P and ECF Association in Malaysia. So I just want to follow on to your question just now, because P2P is regulated in Malaysia, so there's 11 players here. So to date, P2P has funded over 25,000 campaigns. 25, I think, I'm going to show the data later, 25,200 over, and over 2 billion investments have been, or funding, have been supporting these companies. So on various models, so I believe that we've got, I think, two Sharia license, P2P, and 9 conventional, and the range of support actually range from as low as 10,000, 20,000, right up to 2 million, I believe. Yeah, so obviously P2P, like you were saying earlier, the rate of lending is much higher. The maximum, I think, SC has stipulated in the guidelines is up to 18%, you know, similar to credit card interest. But I think, of course, the duration of payment, and again, I believe, like you mentioned earlier, the rate of lending also depends on the duration, the credit rating, the credit risk, and so on and so forth. So there's different permutations and combinations. But of course, in the end of the day, it's also the product. Some P2P focuses on invoice financing, some on term financing and so on. So I just wanted to clarify that it is regulated in Malaysia, but in Malaysia it's not regulated by Bank Negara, it's regulated by the SC. Thank you.
Thank you, Wan Elain. I think that's quite true, because I guess in Indonesia, perhaps the difference between there is already a P2P in Malaysia, basically, but as Wan Elain was mentioning, about 9 of them. In Indonesia, there are 103 players, and then there's still rooms. I guess the difference is basically the market dynamics, the different market dynamics between the two countries, right? So the needs of the Indonesian companies, SMEs especially, are far bigger than what is actually you're seeing in Malaysia. And so I guess if you have adequate supply and demand kind of situation, then you would see equilibrium far closer. So you mentioned about the 18% ceiling be imposed in Malaysia. In Indonesia, the ceiling are a little bit more higher. P2P are allowed now to lend up to 0.4% per day. So that is about 12% per month, which is actually 36% per annum. So that is the kind of differences that you have between Indonesia and Malaysia in respect of the economics.
Thank you, Saudara Azhar. Thank you very much for enlightening us. So we will move on to the next one. Our next speaker is Ms. Elain Lockman. She's a CEO and founder of Ata Plus, a licensed equity crowdfunding platform in Indonesia, and alumni of London School of Economics. She then moved on to MDEC. She was in Petronas for a short while, Media Shop, and now she's...
I can talk. Yeah. Okay, never mind. Let me talk. I thought it'd be nicer to show the slides. How are you gonna do it?
Bau sekarang.
Okay. So, how is going to boleh ya? Assalamualaikum, good morning everybody. Whilst Man is setting up the slides for me, I'll just just add on to the introduction. So first and foremost, thank you Azman for inviting me here today. So he and I go a long way back because we did our A-levels together. So we've known each other for forever kind of thing. So anyway, so I think, thanks for the introduction, Azman. So my background is, like he mentioned, so I think my career spanned across oil and gas, IT. I was one of the pioneer members of MDAC, when everything was, and together with him, he was also with Johor at the time. Cyberjaya was just full of palm oil, it was palm oil estate, really. And I think I was employee number, 15 or something in MDAC. So it's interesting to see how Cyberjaya has developed to where it is today. So I think I'm proud to see the growth of the industry. Okay, can we go to the first slide, right at the beginning, right at the top. Atas sekali. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a brief overview about equity crowdfunding in Malaysia first before we talk about Ata Plus. Just a little bit to touch on Ata Plus. Next. So I just want to, before we get into the subject matter proper, I just want to understand, do you understand what ECF is? I don't have to get into it, right? So equity crowdfunding is just, before we get into that. So typically when we look at equity crowdfunding, there's various stages of fundraising like everybody knows, right? So typically equity crowdfunding is being considered by entrepreneurs at the seed level, early stage, and interestingly now at pre-IPO stage as well. Okay, so we've had a company on our platform that raised funds 1 year before, and it was already pre-arranged, and they've talked to the parties. They were acquired. They were going to be acquired after a year. So the investors actually got a secured 20% upside, through the acquisition by the public listed co. So next. So the concept of crowdfunding, I just want to mention here, is not something new. So I think in many years ago, before the advent of digital social media, mobile technology, we do crowdfunding, but in a traditional way. We want to set up a business, or there's an initiative that we want support. So we go to, who do we go to? To our friends and family, people that we know. Friends in your community, your taman, your people at the office, and so on. However, with mobile technology, digital and social media, you're now able to access people who may share same interests and they want to get involved in specific ideas. And it does not necessarily have to be people that you know, right? You can actually reach out to those across different localities. And what's great is it can reach to anywhere and everywhere across the globe. So the concept of crowdfunding is you pitch your idea, you fundraise, right? And in exchange for something, right? So there's 4 types of crowdfunding. The one on the left, donation and reward, there's no cash returns to it. So donation is typically for charitable causes. And reward crowdfunding, most businesses or individuals opt for reward crowdfunding when they're looking at coming up with a prototype, for example. I guess the most popular reward crowdfunding platform will be the likes of Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Now, how it evolved into, especially equity crowdfunding, was quite a number of the companies, yeah, that was spun out of the Kickstarter campaigns eventually became very successful businesses, and they got listed. So a lot of the early supporters felt that they if only they had gotten equities, yeah, in these companies, then they would have made a huge upside. So I always use this example. You guys know Uber, right? So and this is an actual case study. Now, if you had invested $10,000 in Uber 10 years before it got listed, how much do you think your 10,000 would, the value of your 10,000 would be upon listing? Dato' Nick, you said 10 million. Go crazy. Sorry? 100 million? Okay, anyone else? Asman, please. 1 million. Okay, to be exact, $110 million. But of course, you got a hole, right? And the potential is huge. And you can imagine the, Anthony Tan, right? I think his mother was one of the first, his early investor. And I think she maybe invested maybe 100,000, Cradle missed the boat big time because they exited, right? So, where that 100,000 could be today, yeah, with their listing. So that's the opportunity with equity crowdfunding. You invest, but you don't put all your eggs in one basket. You spread your risk, yeah, and the potential is very high. You don't know where your 100 ringgit or your 1,000 and so on, can get you to. So that's equity crowdfunding. P2P is very straightforward. It's actually lending, and we always say this is a regulated money lender, essentially, yeah. But having said that, it has given access to funds for the underserved. Those businesses who were rejected by the banks, and actually the P2P players actually work very closely with the banks, yeah. Then the banks actually channel these businesses to the P2P operators. Next. So essentially, obviously, most of the time, business owners look for or opt for crowdfunding for funds, yeah. And it's not easy, yeah. So I'll go through later in terms of what are the requirements and what would be the key success factors of, especially for ECF. P2P is pretty straightforward. But the other thing that's the upside of ECF or equity crowdfunding is actually the marketing bit, because you actually get inadvertently more eyeballs on your business and also on your brand, rather than you spend actual marketing dollars for PR or even putting money in your marketing activities, and there's cases to prove that too. Now, as for the backers, obviously it's the investment upside, but some backers actually are actually proud to say that, oh, I own this company, because I invested in this business, be it big or small. Yeah. Next. So just an overview of ECF in Malaysia. Next. So we are one of the first countries. We are actually the first country in ASEAN to regulate equity crowdfunding, yeah, and P2P. So it was actually approved 6 equity crowdfunding operators in 2015, and to date, if you look at the end, as this is the number that's published in SC, as at September 2021, for equity crowdfunding, there's over 350 million funds that has been disbursed to support over 200 campaigns. Yeah. So when you talk about 200 campaigns, it's not necessarily 236 companies. A few of them have done repeat campaigns. And for P2P, there's close to 2 billion ringgit that has funded over 25,000 campaigns. Next. So this is just a bit of the breakdown. So over 200 businesses has been funded through Equity Crowdfunding, and you can see the breakdown. Majority is within those bands. But you will see later the interesting evolution of the industry in terms of the guidelines. Next. So this is in terms of demography of investors. You can see a majority are retail and tend to be, the younger generation. But obviously, the fund size does not correspond to that, lah. Yeah. So most of the time, the fund size is reversed in terms of more sophisticated investors will invest more. Yeah. Next. And what's good in Malaysia is the investors are not just limited to Malaysians. Yeah. So you can fundraise from anywhere, anyone around the world. However, except for Bank Negara sanctioned countries, at the moment is Iran and North Korea. And we are a bit mindful of investors from the US as well, because the US, as you see, they're very particular about solicitation of investments, especially to their retail investors from American citizens. Next. And there's also a lot of support from the government, and if you look at the last 4 budgets, the government has greatly supported this industry by providing matching investment as well. So you will see that from 2020 onwards, there's quite a number of government-owned companies now, lah, amongst the SMEs. So the government wanted to say that that they want to support the businesses, but they do match with the crowd. So they invest together with the crowd, they co-invest. So for every 4 ringgit the crowd invests, the government will match with 1 ringgit up to 1 million ringgit per company. Yeah? Okay, next. Then there's also tax incentives for investors. So up to 50% tax rebate for investments of up to 50,000 per annum. So the investments from 1st of January 2021 up to 31st December 2023. So next. So this is how the guidelines has evolved. Initially, when ECF was first introduced in Malaysia, the fundraising amount, there was only a maximum of 5 million ringgit in a year, in a lifetime, and 3 million ringgit in a year. And it was only limited to Sdn Bhd registered businesses. But to date, as of end of last year, the government has, or the SC has increased the limit. Now you can fundraise up to 20 million ringgit. Okay, so there's a lot of opportunity for businesses in ECF, especially those who were perhaps considering LEAP previously, right? So LEAP is not that liquid, so you may want to opt for ECF. And now, not only Sdn Bhd registered businesses, limited liability partnerships, and unlisted public companies, unlisted Berhad, are also eligible to fundraise on this platform. Okay, next. So what I just want to mention here is that businesses like, who are fundraising to provide loans, yeah, so money lenders are not eligible to fundraise. And if you are a holding company that wants to do investing in other companies, or you want to acquire businesses, you are, you're not allowed to fundraise, because you need to have a proper business plan that shows growth, for that particular business structure. Yeah, next. What a company needs to have is also, like I mentioned, at least a 3-year business plan corresponding to that 3-year financial projections. It should be in Excel sheet. We need to see your clear assumptions, the formulas, how you derive, add the numbers. It needs to support, the business as well as the usage of funds. Okay, and your audit reports must be in order, your latest audit statements, and also your management accounts. Next. So yeah, next, I just want to, yeah, for that one, investors, retail investors can only invest up to 5,000 ringgit. But we find that a lot of retail can actually invest more. So they can self-declare as either an angel investor or a sophisticated investor. Next. So just a little bit of case studies. Okay, so I don't want to go through too much into this, but essentially what I want to say is that ECF is not limited to specific verticals. Yeah, so initially when ECF was first introduced in Malaysia, most of the issuers or most of the companies that approached equity crowdfunding were IT oriented, yeah, tech oriented. But over the years, it's become, I mean, especially for Ata Plus, we don't only look at tech businesses, we are industry agnostic, but we only look at halal businesses, yeah. So Fresh at Heart is one type of company. So these are very true enterprising and very smart gentlemen. They came from Ivy League universities. They had cushy jobs in the investment sector and in the central bank. They left and they decided to go back to their family business and make it enhance the business with technology, right? So what they do is, they bring fresh produce right to your doorstep, all clean and shrink wrapped and right to your doorstep at a price, of course. Next. This is one of our latest fundraising, and it is the largest fundraising to date in Malaysia. So it's close to 18.9 million ringgit that we fundraise for this company. Next, and if you go back, and you look at number of investors, it's over 500 investors that has invested in this company. So next. L'Oreal was interesting because their objective of fundraising was not to fundraise, really. They actually wanted to, number one, give opportunity to a few of their, strong customer base to invest in them. But at the same time, they wanted to communicate, to the public that the company has repositioned themselves to become a lifestyle brand, because they are generally known as a footwear company. Yeah. Dato' Lore actually achieved his objective. He had massive media coverage, front page of Starbiz, 2-page inserts in Starbiz, Focus Malaysia front page, yeah. Next. Makapan is also interesting. Young startup, registered here, but business is in Indonesia. They are now set to be acquired by Gojek. Yeah. Next. FinSpark had a very strong following when and they hold the record of I would say, in terms of organic fundraising, I would say the fastest. They raised overnight, just through their community, yeah, about 1.2 million overnight, yeah, and they closed the campaign on the 6th day of their campaign, and eventually they raised in total 2.2, but they only accepted 1.5. So we had a headache just returning the monies, because as a company or as an issuer, you have the right to reject investors, yeah, for whatever reason, yeah. But for them, the reason why they rejected, because they just wanted 1.5 million ringgit. Okay, next. FIFO, we always like to highlight FIFO because they are into agri-tech, but they are like a co-working space for farmers. So they provide everything, and then if you want to be a farmer, so you can actually be part of their program, even if you don't have any agriculture background. Yeah. So their focus is really to address food security issues. That's their vision, right? So they've been getting a lot of funding since the ECF. Next. Okay. I just want to mention a few. So Scholar Fund is actually one of is our first company that we supported, facilitate the fundraising. They actually talked to more than 100 VCs and angels and never got any funds until they came on our platform. So they are a social enterprise. Impact enterprise, what they do is they support underserved students who's gotten places in universities but can't afford to pay fees. Yeah, so they so we supported them in terms of facilitated their fundraising, and they were also the first to exit. So they were 100% acquired by an Indonesian impact company, and they gave 10% returns to their investors. But I believe that the investors invested in them not only for to support their business, but also in the cause itself. So the impact, you can see the impact given to them, the investors, in terms of the scholarships that they support, that were raised, and the beneficiaries. Yeah, next. Next. I just want to go next. I want to mention a little bit about this. So it is a biotech company. They fundraise from Crowdcube. Crowdcube is one of the I would say the top crowdfunding platform in the world. So the interesting bit about SelectZero is that I believe they've done the smallest fundraise. I mean, in terms of individual who put in money in SelectZero, it was £7. So that's how inclusive crowdfunding is. Yeah. So next. I don't have time, that's why I'm just, go back. So Brewdog is also interesting. They raised multiple rounds on Crowdcube, and they actually gave 27x returns to their investors, because it was, a PE firm went in and bought out all the ECF investors. Okay, next. Okay, I just want to mention this. Okay, these are some of the key success factors for any businesses who wants to look at fundraising via ECF. And it is not one single success factor, it is a combination, yeah? So it will help if you have market traction, how you structure the offer, you know. So when you talk, sorry, I want to go back. When you talk about market traction, it's not about profitability, yeah? So it could, like for example, like Facebook, right? When they went on to do their listing, right? They didn't have profits. I mean, if you look at Grab even, you know. So but what is it? It's the market potential and how you want to monetize the potential. They had a lot of members, yeah? So how do you actually showcase, illustrate your potential? The offer, you know, the offer is also important. Quite a number of companies now structure their offering in pref share structure, and also put in rewards, yeah? Marketing strategy is important. Like we do a lot of marketing support for our issuers, and if you have a big community, it's great, yeah? Because you're highly likely to get more support from your community, because they know your business, they know how good you are, and they want to support you, yeah, to further success. The team as well is important, and for young startups, typically what we always advise them, or what they would do, is to engage or work with established advisors, more experienced, skilled advisors. And of course, commitment. We've had cases whereby the promoters are not committed. So when there's no commitment, you can't just leave it to the platform, because it is your business. Yeah, the platform can only do so much. Yeah, next. So these are the details. Next. Okay, just a little bit about our company. Next. So we have been registered with the SC since 2015. So these are the co-founders, 3 co-founders, and we believe that with crowdfunding, you know, we can further support not only the industries, the underserved, but also the economy. Next. So what we do is not only I would say swift process, but a very detailed due diligence. We do provide other value-added services and marketing support. Next. our platform. Do take a look. I can give you my cards later. Thank you. Next. Okay, these are our traction to date. So we've raised close to 81 million ringgit and listed over close to 60 companies and over 41 successful campaigns. And these are the latest numbers. Next. The smallest investment that we have accepted to date is 10 ringgit. Yeah, so that shows how inclusive we are. From an individual is 1 million. And we have also accepted big sums of foreign investments. Next. 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 So these are the team. So our advisors, Tan Sri Samad alias, he's a well-known individual, especially if you're in the accounting fraternity. And also he's been the chairman of, the first chairman of MAFCAP, MDV, Cradle. He was on the board of Tabung Haji Bank Pembangunan, SME, and a few public listed companies, yeah. And he was the chairman of he is the chairman of FIDE Forum and was the chairman of PIDM. I know Azhar, I know Jamal. If you're in oil and gas sector, you would know Jamal. He was in Schlumberger for many, many years. So until some years back, he was invited to the Petronas board. That's when he left Schlumberger. Next. This is myself, Elaine, and my two other co-founders. So Aimee is an investment banker well, she's an chartered accountant, investment banker for many years until he also had his, one of the first, I would say, tech startups in Malaysia, Sekali. He was one of the co-founders, yeah. And Kiri, in his previous life in advertising, but then he's transformed himself, yeah, into especially tech and social fintech. He's very much passionate in that, and he's very much into the alternative funding mechanism. So he looks at a lot of our innovation. Aimee looks at more of the compliance, and I do everything else. Okay, thanks. Next. These are the rest of the team. We are supported by a young team. I mean, this was I don't have the latest picture, but yeah, this was our team like a few months, I would say 6 months ago. Next. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Elaine.
Yeah, hi, Sebastian.
Very good presentation.
Thank you.
Now I have quite a long list of questions, but I think I just make do to one or two important ones. Crowdfunding is something quite new to me, especially because we belong to the old school. So I just want to know, as a platform, when you do the crowdfunding, what would be because I see some of the fundraising that you raised. What will be the net that ultimately goes into the investee companies? In other words, what will be the cost of funding?
Oh, cost of funding, the fees.
Yeah, the fee.
Right. So specific to Ata Plus, we have a non-refundable processing fee. At the moment, our processing fee is 4,888, 4,888. So less than 5,000 ringgit, yeah. And then there's a success fee. Our publish rate is 7%, yeah. But obviously, it ranges because now the fundraising is up to 20 million. Of course, for 20 million, we don't charge 7%, lah, yeah. Yeah, we do look at the fundraising amounts, yeah. So that's two. Thirdly, there's other third-party costs, yeah. So as you're aware, especially for Sindra and Berhad companies, you are limited to 50 individual shareholders to be registered under SSM, right? So we do use an SPV to hold the many investors. So for Ata Plus, We don't use nominee structure, so the alternative to that, we use an LLP. So it is much more cost effective. So all the small investors will be grouped in the LLP. Yeah, they will be partners and they are bounded by a partnership agreement that we have specifically customized, yeah, for the LP for purpose of ECF, and also to facilitate secondary market trading, yeah, when the platform is available. And other third-party costs would be platform payment gateway fees, especially for those investors who invest via credit card or debit card, and so on and so forth. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
Okay, if I'm an investor, you were just mentioning about investing, how much you charge the...
We don't charge the investors, we only charge
the investor.
Yeah.
But the only thing is probably the gateway fee, as you mentioned, right?
No, but that is charged to the issuer as well. So investor, at the moment we don't charge the investor, but in future we are thinking of that, but we do have to make it very transparent to tell them that if you invest, say, 10,000, and if there's other charges, we'll have to make it very clear. But at the moment, no. Investor invest 10,000, they get 10,000 worth of shares.
And the return will be based on the
term sheet.
The gross investment that I put in, right? Let's say I put in 10,000. When you do the distribution in
oh yes, yes, of course. So in future, whether you exit via IPO or whatever, it's based on that 10,000.
Okay, just one more question. All the examples that you showed are all Malaysian Sdn Bhd company.
Yes, correct. It must be Malaysian Sdn Bhd because we are regulated in Malaysia. Okay. You must be a registered business in Malaysia. So, like Mekapan, for example, the company is registered here, but their focus is to grow the business in Indonesia. So they create a company there, and there must be a clear legal structure. So the financial management is done here. Initially, the tech was done here too. So there's a split. There's some tech team here, and there's also a tech team over there. But obviously, operations and marketing is all in Indonesia because Indonesia's market is so big. Ya, itu pun tak cukup makan already. Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Hello. Elain, thanks a lot. Yeah. I think it's very interesting. I came from the background of corporate also.
Right.
I did some bond issues,
right.
big fundraising, but this is something new that I don't know.
Yeah.
I read a bit here and there, but
sure.
it's very eye-opening for your briefing today. We have, personally, I have some intention to use this kind of platform, but I don't know where to go. It's very interesting. Now I know you. It's very good. Basically, from your case study there, some business is quite similar with my ambition.
Right.
So basically, you see the total number of investors, few hundred.
Yeah.
So basically, in total equity, how much they own, the company?
So it depends on the company lah.
Yeah.
So some people, some businesses, some issuers offer 20%, some 5%, some.
Okay.
So it really depends. It really depends on the companies.
Based on the case study, the maximum equity owned by the SPV is how much?
If I remember correctly, I can't remember SPV, but the maximum that a company has allocated, put for investors, if I'm not mistaken, is 20%. That's the maximum.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So, I don't want something like this, a similar case. I'm quite experienced in that. I became bad with people also before. When we invest in certain small companies. When we go 3 rounds of fundraising, So the founder
Get diluted.
Yeah, suddenly the founder outside the mall already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is where we feel, especially for startups, right? They need to learn how to structure.
Yeah.
Because a lot of startups tak pandai, they tak tahu,
Yes,
they're
yes.
ignorant. So I know of, and this is a very successful company now. But when they first fundraised from their angel investor, they gave the angel investor too much.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just unfortunate that now company memang dahsyat lah, but the angel investor lah yang win.
Yes, yes.
Because dia yang and also it depends on the non-dilution clause. Some people they're very cunning, right?
Yeah.
They put the non-dilution sampai habis, mana boleh. So you can't say I'm non-diluted forever, right? So there must be a certain point whereby they will
cap
be
lah, it's a
pari
cap.
passu with everybody.
It's a fair to everybody. Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So just on that point, right? This is what I noticed, especially with young startups, and not only just young startups, like most businesses. If you need to learn how to, especially at the early stage, you need to learn how to structure your when you do investing, when you fundraise. Sebab if you give, like you rightfully said, if you give away too much, by the time you go IPO, you dah tinggal ciput buat apa.
Yeah.
Unless you are in the position macam Grab, whereby you have the likes of the big names, right? Siapa? SoftBank, right? Which is fine, you know, because they bring a lot of other value, because they bring the other brands, you know, the other funders into the business. But if you're at that stage, that's okay. You know, but having said that, you get diluted like this, but you have a lot of shares, you know, yeah.
Your fees of 7%, is it inclusive of some kind of advisory on this?
No, we are prohibited to provide advisory.
Okay.
Because as a platform, we must remain independent. Having said that, we do give inputs. So katalah valuation, right? So we've had a startup yang 6 months old, tiba-tiba kata, oh my valuation is 60 million. So like, you know, where did that come from, you know? But having said that, who are we to argue? Because maybe they have a fantastic IP. I mean, imagine this, right? Even katalah Google had come to us years ago, and a lot of us don't know what the bloody hell they're talking about, right? But if they put certain type of valuation, there still needs to be some basis of that valuation. But if it makes sense, then so be it, because we find that a lot of promoters or business owners, they so believe that that's the valuation. Okay, if they can convince, because we've had businesses, they had high valuations. Let me share with you, like FinSpark. Their valuation, I think at that time, if I'm not mistaken, was something like 13 to 16 million, and they were not even 1 year old. But because their community believe that they can do it, and investment amount tak banyak pun, it's only what, RM500. So a lot of people have RM500, and it's the power of the crowd, you know. So they had over 400 people. So same thing, you know. So katalah even 5% of the, or 1% of the Malaysian population put in RM10 pun dah berapa banyak tu, you know. So that is the power of the crowd. That's why it's called crowdfunding lah.
Okay, good. So basically, the valuation is come from us.
Yes.
You just verify.
Yeah, so we verify, and we can say argue with the business owner. Tapi business owner kata, no, this is my valuation. I don't want to budge, and this is it. This is because I use this basis A, B, C, D, E. Okay lah.
Alright.
Kita tak boleh cakap dah, kan?
Thank you. I talk to you after this.
Okay, thank you.
Elain, yes.
Yeah.
With regard to your last statement, because if the proprietor doesn't want to budge on the initial valuation,
Yeah.
you mentioned the fact that normally it's maximum around 20% that is being given by the proprietor, the owners, to the crowdfunders, to the investors.
Yes.
So 20%. So with regards to that valuation, 20% of 60 million is 1/5 of that kind of thing is about 3 million, say for example. That means the crowdfunder, the investors, or let's say the 400 people, investors, so they will share that 20% at the valuation of 3, let's say that portion 20%, it becomes 15 million if it's, kalau dia nak minta 1 million, that kind of thing. So where do you draw the line when you say you don't advise, you only provide some form of direction, you cannot advise in the real sense, business consulting kind of thing, like, you know? Where do you draw the line in terms of the business actual worth? For me and investors, I look at if I want to raise...
So that's why, because you must understand, the money is not our money. Okay, so that's why the investors kena buat kerja lah. They have to do their own diligence, you know. So because you must remember, yes, what we do as a platform, we make sure that everything is disclosed. All the information semua ada. So you can see their audit reports, the semua kat situ. But macam audit reports pun you can actually you know, buy if you want. Tapi these are more detailed lah. You know, business plan, financials, you can see. Okay. And if you want to ask more questions, you can actually interact. Dia bukan macam you baca tu, oh you kena terima. If you ada query, you can email, there's a forum, and we do pitching sessions whereby now it's online, anybody can go in and talk to the investors, the issuers virtually, or the business owners. So you boleh tanya. Yeah? So for us, if specific to valuation, we also have partners who can provide that service, you know, to provide like some inverted commas validation lah. And these partners are partners of a certain stature lah, be it accounting firms or legal firms and licensed advisory firms and so on and so forth. Yeah. Ada soalan yang
Okay. If there's no other question, kita end the session today.
Yeah, I can talk to you guys later.
But
Yeah.
Elain will still be around.
Thank you.
Last questions. We have Setia Roman here. Thank you, Elain. We have Setia Roman here. If you want to build your headquarters in Setia Roman, in Cyberjaya, here. We got investor there, we got a Bright Cove sales director here, we got a consultant here, we got a celebrity chef over there, consultant here. So please do come and mix. Thank you very much.